Hello, everyone. I'm Tiffany Thomas, Association Manager at Meeting Expectations. Welcome, everyone, to today's webinar titled Leading with Boldness, Take Charge Women Leading the Association Management Industry. During this session, our panelists of Meeting Expectations Women in Leadership will discuss their journeys to become executive directors, how they approach their leadership roles, and will give tips and common production traps in the workplace. But before we get started, I would like to go over a couple housekeeping items. You'll be on mute throughout the presentation, but if you would like to ask a question, please type your question in the comment box. Once the presentation has concluded, I'll read back the questions so the panelists can respond. So without further delay, we'll begin with introduction of our panelists. Beth, can you begin? Tell us your client organization and how long you've been in association management.
Thank you, Tiffany, and welcome everyone to today's webinar. I am Beth Chitness, Vice President of our Association Management Business Unit here at Meeting Expectations, and also serve as the Executive Director for the International Association of Insurance Professionals. I have been in association management basically my entire career and ultimately got into it when I was in college without realizing that's what I had gotten into. But again, happy to be here today, and thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you, Beth. Kelly.
My name is Kelly Ash. I serve as the Executive Director for the International Practice Management Association. I've been in association management for a whole 3 years now, but absolutely love it.
Awesome. So now you, Reagan.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Reagan Kahn. I'm the Executive Director of the Oracle Applications Users Group here at Meeting Expectations, and I have been in associations management my entire career, so a little over 20 years.
Thanks so much. Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Kritzer. I am the Executive Director for TUG, which stands for the Users Group for Sage Construction and Real Estate Software. I've been at Meeting Expectations and with TUG for about 6 years now, and in association management my entire career, like some of these folks, and just under 10 years.
Perfect. Last but not least, Jen.
Hi, I'm Jen Sanford. I am the Chief Staff Executive for the National Property Management Association, and I've been in association management for going on 8 years now.
Perfect. Thanks so much, everyone, for those wonderful introductions. So let's go ahead and get started with our first question. This first question is directed at you, Beth. Can you explain what association management is and what an association management company does?
Yeah, at Meeting Expectations, we are managing the business of nonprofit organizations, professional membership associations, users groups, and foundations. And within an association management company, we are running these businesses within a larger company infrastructure. So we're able to provide shared resources to meet the needs of our clients. And as you just heard from the women on this panel today, we all support clients that are in different industries with varying subject matters. And while the topics are different, the functional areas of support that we are guiding are the same, from governance to finance, membership, marketing, education, events, and beyond. And so again, it's running those businesses of these organizations, but utilizing the shared resources and best practices from the other client teams that we work with. Oh, Tiffany, I think you're still on mute there.
Thank you so much. So with that, we'll go on with our next question. And for emerging leaders looking to take on leadership roles, Kelly, Beth, and Reagan, can you all share how you ascended to your leadership position today?
Kelly, do you want to take that one first?
So for me, I sort of fell into association management as a whole. It's not something I necessarily knew about before I really got into it. I was looking for a career that kind of merged my love for people, communications, and the creative side of me. And so I ended up finding that in association management was amazing. But in terms of, I guess, how I came to getting a leadership role was really knowing my association. I started as a senior coordinator. Every job responsibility that I took on, I became the expert at. I learned everything I possibly could about it, everything I possibly could about the association. and just continued to move up from there, to take on more responsibility and to continue to grow within the IPMA. So I think in terms of becoming the ED, it was just having all that research, having all that knowledge, and being the expert in the association. When the position became available, I was really ended up being the best fit for it because I knew so much about the association.
Perfect. Beth, how about you?
Similar to Kelly is, I started within association management, again, without realizing that's what I was doing. And finding that working with organizations that had a mission-driven purpose, that were all coming together to educate, to create those connections, provide those networking opportunities for the members of these organizations, and just being inspired and in awe of the volunteers and the board members that were giving so much time and so much of their energy for that particular purpose, and being able to be a part of that. And so that's really what drew me to association management and has kept me within it. But then to be able to, as Kelly mentioned as well, continue to grow within meeting expectations and within the clients. I've been fortunate to be with meeting expectations for just over 12 years. And through that time, had an opportunity to work with multiple association clients and grow within each of those organizations and taking on more responsibilities or more roles within either the client or within ME. What has made me successful, I think, is the ability to look for opportunities to do more, recognizing that I had a skill set or a lot more that I could offer, and just jumping into those conversations, taking a seat at the table, and constantly learning so that I can continue to expand on the value that I could give back to those clients.
Thank you so much, Beth. Now you, Reagan, can you tell us?
Sure. So when I got into association management, I didn't actually realize that that's what I had just done. So my first job out of college as a public relations graduate happened to be with a relatively large international association. So I started off as just a communications person who happened to work in association management. But really quickly, and then continually over time, I found myself involved outside of my own department through taking on special projects, participating on teams, and then taking advantage of chances to lead teams when I could. So that my role expanded, and every time I had the opportunity to take on new responsibilities, I said yes. And then, like Kelly said, I made sure that I learned what I needed to learn in that area, and became really proficient and competent in that, so that I can move on to other things. I, over time, tried to position myself as kind of the go-to person when there was a project that kind of crossed departments that didn't fit neatly into anyone's bucket. I was the one that raised my hand and said, I'll spearhead that. I think that really served me well over time. But a couple of other things that I would say, one, it's also about professional development, and that ongoing effort to expand skills, hone skills, and learn new things over time, both inside the workplace and outside. And also along with that comes the opportunity to develop your professional network. I have only been here at Meeting Expectations since last fall. So my journey here was a long one. But along the way, it was the broader professional network that I developed with the local and statewide association management community that really helped move me along. And so just one more word about that. I would just say that leads back to the value of associations themselves. I mean, that's what all of our groups exist to provide, is that kind of educational home and networking opportunities. So certainly for anybody watching who is in association management or wants to get into association management, I can't recommend strongly enough getting involved in your state Society of Association Executives. But if you're watching and you're not in this field, I would just say find the association in your field and begin to look for opportunities there to meet new people, develop mentor relationships, learn new things, volunteer. I eventually had the opportunity to serve on the board with that state group, as has Beth. And it's great experience to have the opportunity to sit on the other side of the board table as a board member. I mean, that's really helped me in my career as well.
And I think that's a really good way to segue to our next question. And this question is directed to the whole panel. Why do you think women are such a good fit to be leaders in the association management industry? And I guess if you don't mind, Amy, can we start with you?
Yeah, sure. You know, and as Reagan was speaking, this came to mind. She mentioned relationships. And, you know, for me, that's something huge that I bring to the table. I'm good at nurturing those relationships. You know, being an executive director, you have this relationship with your board. Sometimes it becomes a family, and that reaches on to your members and beyond. So I think that's a really great attribute women bring to the table, and specifically myself with my organization, the relationships.
Perfect. How about you, Jen?
So I think one of the good things about women in this industry is that a lot of times with the association industry, we are kind of in the background doing the work to make the board look good, to make the association look good. And I think women as a whole, we just want to get the job done and do it well, even if we don't get the credit for it. And I think that's something that in this job is very important, that if you're always looking for the credit and you're always looking for somebody to say, "Atta girl, you did it, nice job," you're probably going to be disappointed. Not that our boards don't recognize the hard work that we put into our jobs, but often it's better if we can make it look like the board made that decision, the board made it all happen, and they were the ones behind it, because they're the volunteers that are putting their, you know, their personal time into this, whereas it's a career for me. So if I can make my board look good, at the end of the day, I'm a very happy person.
Great point. Great point. Does anyone else have anything to add to this?
One other factor for me specifically that I've found beneficial is having that ability to read a room, to assess body language, to identify when everyone may not be on the same page in that conversation, and really listening to what is being said without just trying to think of what I'm going to be saying next. And so I think all of this relates back to an emotional intelligence factor, and really being able to identify the direction a conversation might be going, and any adjustments I might need to make in what I'm communicating or how I'm communicating, to ensure that everyone has what they need for whatever that decision is that we're going to be making.
And I think that's a good way for us to move on to the next question. You talked about having a seat at the board table. So with that being said, in every workplace, there is this proverbial table where it can be a struggle for women to take a seat at. So do you have any tips or an advice how to claim your seat? And I know we briefly touched in on that, but Kelly, can you speak to that?
Yeah, of course. I think, you know, we had this conversation the other day about, you know, women having that struggle at the table. And I think, you know, maybe a few of others, you can talk to the fact that I grew up in a different generation. For me, it was never an issue because I'm a woman, because I was a girl. That was never in question. So I think I've always kind of approached that from a different mindset of there's no reason I shouldn't be at the table. I think for me, I didn't wait for someone to ask me. I didn't wait for someone to invite me. I, you know, made myself, again, an expert at what I was doing, and, you know, brought my own seat to the table. I think that, you know, I spoke up, I said my piece, I gave my opinion about whatever the topic was. And because I was so knowledgeable, it was respected. And so I think my advice would be, don't wait for someone to ask you to join the table. Don't wait for someone to invite you. It's make a case for yourself to be there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Amy?
Yeah, and I'll have to agree. I mean, just saying take a seat at the table, that implies that it's up for grabs. So, you know, take it, be assertive. Don't be afraid to take risks. If you have the knowledge, like Kelly was saying, you have the knowledge of your association. You know it backwards and forwards. And you can be a leader, and taking that seat is a step forward for everybody. Share what you know. Don't be afraid to share those unique, I can't even think of the word, but everything that you know.
Thank you so much. So with that, our next question is, what have your respective client associations done to create opportunities to expand women in leadership? And since we just stopped with you, Amy, how about Reagan, you take that one first?
Sure. So at the Oracle Applications Users Group, this is a software tech industry association, which is traditionally a male-dominated field. But we have for several years at our big annual conference hosted a special event around women in technology, where we give a chance for all of the women, well, and it's not limited to women, whoever wants to come together and celebrate that group, to come together, have an opportunity over a meal to share stories, and then to hear from a panelist of women who are in various stages of their career in the field. Just this last year, we also created a recognition program and a new scholarship program to recognize an emerging leader who is also a woman in technology, to give her an opportunity to be a voice in that panel and help inspire those who are, in the early stages of their career to do all of the things that we're talking about on this webinar. And I should just say that in addition to being a fabulous webinar moderator, Tiffany is also a member of the OAUG team, and she actually runs that program. So I want to say, Tiffany, is there anything else that you would add about our Women in Technology program?
I think just you covered it all. But like you mentioned, the new recognition program is an opportunity for us to recognize emerging women or in the Oracle technology space. And I think it's just a true testament of the value, not only that women can bring to technology or just to a leadership position, but emerging young women. So absolutely, thanks for the opportunity to speak to that, Reagan. So with that, Amy, I want to pass it on to you. What does your client association, what have they done to create opportunities to expand women in leadership?
Yeah, well, we've done something similar on a smaller scale, but being in the construction industry, like you mentioned with the OAUG, it's a very male-dominated or perceived to be male-dominated industry. So we have a lot of women leaders at our conference. We have a good 50-50 split of women and men. And we started to notice there's a lot of women joining us that are in leadership roles, and they could be teaching some of these classes, and other women would probably want to hear from them and hear their journey, just like we're speaking today of ours. So we had one of our board members mentioned bringing in a session called Women in Construction, having a panel at our conference just to see how it went. And it was wonderful. We invited these leaders who had never spoken at our conference before, and they were able to share their challenges, their successes, and their journeys, and it was really well received. So I'm excited to see where we can expand this program and move it forward.
Thank you, Amy. Now, Beth?
So I support the International Association of Insurance Professionals, which was originally founded as the National Association of Insurance Women. Pretty amazing history. It was founded almost 80 years ago and it identified a need to provide education and leadership training and networking for women that were stepping into insurance roles, or their role was growing within the insurance industry because the men went off to war. And so the history of the organization was really founded on developing and strengthening women within the insurance industry. And while it's now expanded to be a completely inclusive organization, it still is predominantly women within the membership. But beyond that, the focus really is on creating those leadership opportunities and the leadership development. And so they launched the Certified Leadership Professional Program to provide training to help develop strong, confident leaders within the insurance industry and beyond. And so that leadership is a huge component of that association now moving forward.
So, Tiffany, if I can just add one more thing here at the end, just kind of bring all that together, I think. Another plug just for associations themselves. So as we were kind of preparing for this webinar and kind of sharing our stories, I'm not sure that any of us really felt like we had faced been held back in our careers as women, but we know that is a reality in many workplaces and in many industries. And so I would just say that I hope that we've made the effective case here that if you are in that situation, another place where you can go to expand your skill set and gain leadership opportunities, get opportunities to get in front of a room as a presenter, become a leader, build your resume, is the association that serves your field.
Thanks, Reagan, for that plug-in. You're absolutely right. And as all of you have mentioned, the training, the leadership opportunities, that is very important. And with that, there's been so much research conducted on the value of mentorship for both mentor and mentee. So Jen, with that being said, what is your approach to mentoring, and what would you like to continue in that realm of things?
Yeah, so personally, I think that mentorship is very important. As Reagan just said, your associations in whatever field that you work in are great resources for this. Personally, I think it's very important that we give back. On my end, I didn't get to where I am by myself. I had a lot of people that helped me along the way, and I'm sure we all have the same thing. And I think it's very important that as we continue to climb in our careers, whatever they may be, that we turn around and help those that are coming up behind us see the promise that they have, even if they don't see it in themselves, I think is important. I work with a lot of younger people that are just out of college or a couple years out of college, that they don't know what they want to do in their life yet. And that's okay. I didn't either. I didn't start in association management. I kind of fell into it. But I think it's important that as a mentor, that I get with my mentees and make sure that anything that they have in mind that they want to do with their lives, that we give them that path and those skills so that they can grow themselves to one day become whatever it is they want to do, whether they want to stay in association management or not, that I give them those skills and those, whether it be continuing education opportunities, or if I give them projects that I know, hey, this will really help grow you, and maybe even if it's something completely different than what they thought they wanted to do, give them a chance to try something out, so that if it's something that piques their interest and they're like, hey, I really enjoy this, this is what I want to do going forward, that I've helped them to grow and find their place in whatever it is that they want to do with the rest of their life.
Thank you so much, Jen. Now with this next question, I just want to take a step back, and it's for the moms that are on the panel. This is an interesting comment, but the comment is, women are supposed to work like they don't have children and raise children like they don't have jobs. How does that statement resonate with the moms on the panel? So I'll start with you, Beth.
Yeah, so this is a question that is near and dear to me. I am blessed with two young elementary school aged children, and for me, the key is to try my best to effectively juggle all the responsibilities for work and family. And I know we talk about work-life balance, and in my life, balance is ideal, but it's not always a reality. And so it's just trying to identify, how can I best juggle all these different components? And I will say I am fortunate, and we are fortunate to work in an environment with the flexibility. So if I want to make a soccer practice after work and after dinner, or to be a mystery reader in a kindergarten class on a Friday morning, to be able to have the opportunity to carve that time out in my schedule to make that a priority for that specific day. But it takes time to manage it all together. As I was thinking about this webinar and this topic in particular, I surprisingly was asked a very similar question just this week from a peer in association management, and how can I manage all the varying responsibilities and the demands on my time? And as I shared a few tips back with her, I realized that that applies to how I juggle work and life and kids and everything as well. And so I'd love to share just a few of my tips with the group here on how I can manage everything. But for me, the key is I prioritize daily. I have a daily Post-it note of, these are the things that I have to get done today. Sometimes they don't all get checked off. Sometimes it's only one thing that gets checked off. And I understand that those priorities are going to shift, but it's really focusing on what is the most important thing that I need to get done today, and filling in, again, like that soccer practice, or how does my life fit into that as well. Another key is don't overpromise. I was going to say don't overcommit, but sometimes I think I've already done that. And so once I've overcommitted, how do I not overpromise on those deliverables. And so being realistic with my time and what is actually going to be able to be accomplished, and communicating that back to whomever the party is that's being delivered to. And I think for me, the one that has become the most important is taking ownership of my calendar and my time. And there are committee meetings and board meetings and internal meetings and team members to work with and projects that we have to get accomplished. And if I'm not careful, all of a sudden my entire day has been filled with meetings for something else other than actually getting work done. And so trying to take back that ownership of my day and control of how I will be spending that time and carving that time out for it. And then beyond that, I can be shifting or switching those hats throughout that day. And it takes thought and energy to shift to a new task, or after an interruption to be able to get back on track with where we're at. And so being cognizant of taking the time to prepare for whatever that next meeting is, or that next webinar that I might be on, and really being thoughtful with knowing that that takes energy to make that shift and preparing for that. And so this all, again, back to the question about how do you juggle it with children. It's just a component of it. It's part of the day-to-day and being able to fill that in. But I will say an area where I need to do a better job of, and I think all women, especially those with children, may fit into this category as well, is take time for yourself. Take time to learn, to read a book, to do whatever you need to do to be a better you. And sometimes work and kids can get in the way for that for me. So that's something to keep in mind too.
Absolutely, Beth. Those were all great tips. So Reagan, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, that was super, Beth. Yeah, so this is something that I've had to wrestle with for a long time. I have 5 children in 5 schools this year. So I've been at the mom thing for a good long while, and I've always worked in association management throughout that time. So I'll start just where Beth left off, because that's where she left off, and the idea of investing in yourself. And that's true for all of us, whether we're moms or not. And I would just add, in addition to just making time for it, which is what Beth just talked about, I would just say make sure that you are taking time for yourself to set your next goal. Make sure you always know what it is you're working towards. When you don't, then you're not able to make the best decisions about where to invest your professional development, what relationships to invest in, what experiences that you want to make sure that you're grabbing. And this is from somebody who has, at times in her career, done a really good job of that and being really focused on what's next. And then during another period in my career, I kind of lost sight of that. And I got comfortable where I was. And looking back, I can see that I missed out on some opportunity to really kind of be growing intentionally and moving forward purposefully during that period. And so that would be an important part of my advice on this. Beth touched on this, just remember that you're in charge of your own life. Your life is not your sister's life, not your mother's life, not your coworker's life, it's yours. And it's not a competition with any of those people or with Pinterest or Facebook or anything else. So it is what you make of it, and you only get it once. So you know what? You do you. And whatever that looks like, that means you've got to set your own boundaries. I've had this conversation so many times with people who work for me and with coworkers. Like, nobody else is going to come and say, okay, you've got to leave work now, it's time to go. Like, you have to set those boundaries for yourself, because work is never done, and that's got to be okay. It'll always be there the next day. But when it's time, and this is true too, this isn't just for moms. I mean, everyone needs to have other things in life besides work, because work can easily become all-consuming. And then, at the end of all of it, what have you got? So set your boundaries, say yes when you want to say yes, but recognize that it's okay to say no when you need to say no. And then the point that I was going to start with, that is really like my biggest one over the course of my career, is just give yourself some grace. I feel really sad for any woman who really feels like, back to that statement, you got to work like you don't have kids and raise kids like you don't have a job. I mean, what a sad pressure to feel like you have to bear in life. And so, just grant yourself some grace and chart the course that you want to chart for yourself, and give yourself permission to go be the mystery reader with your kids' class, and also give yourself permission to not volunteer to be the room mom. If it's not your season for that, don't, give yourself that grace as well. And good luck.
Thank you both, Reagan and Beth. Those are all really awesome points to consider. And with that, you both mentioned about taking time to set your next goal and giving yourself some grace. But with that, and then of course, this question is open up to the whole panel. How do you avoid production traps, like becoming a note taker in the meeting, to ensure that you're being strategic? And how about Amy? You want to start with that?
I'll let someone go first on this one.
Okay,
Sorry.
no problem.
I'll start on that one. I think that when we talk about not being the note taker, it doesn't mean that note taking is bad. I think what we meant as we kind of talked around that was the idea that you don't always have to be the one to volunteer to take on the administrative roles in the teams that you're on and in the groups that you participate in. I think what as women we want to be careful to avoid is putting ourselves in groups, in teams where we should be seen as equals. We don't want to put ourselves in the position of being everyone's assistant. And it's easy to fall into that, because when you're the one who volunteers to schedule the next meeting, send out the notes, do all those things, in a sense, you're asserting a role of leadership. And I think that's how we view it oftentimes. We're taking charge, we're getting things done. And oftentimes I think other people look at that as us putting us in a position of servitude, which does not always serve us well when we're trying to advance to the ranks or be seen in a leadership position. So that's not to say that you should never be the note taker. You should never be the one to volunteer. I just think it's something to be cognizant of, because I'm not sure that we think of it the same way that some others we might be in a position to be in rooms with see it the same way. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, certainly. It definitely makes sense. Does anyone else want to speak to that question?
Yeah, I would add to that, like Beth said before, just be strategic in what you're doing. I think, especially on my association, and I'm guessing everyone else has the same problem, is we have a lot of work on our plates, a lot of stuff that needs to get done, a lot of requests that are constantly coming in. And it's easy to get bogged down in those day-to-day one-off project requests that come in, that you get to the end of the week and you're like, man, it's Friday at 5 o'clock. I still haven't done any of the planning that I wanted to do for moving the association forward, moving my career forward, helping the company itself. So I think you just need to, and personally what I do is I set specific time on my calendar where I put do not disturb on my phone, and I turn off my email, I close it completely, and I take time to get projects done that I know I need to get done. I think as women, when something is brought to us, we want to, like I said before, get it done, right? We're the people who are going to get it done and make sure it's done well. But I think sometimes you need to sacrifice some of the littler tasks that need to be done, or delegate them to someone else so that you can be strategic, because that's the only way you're going to move forward in either your association or your professional life itself.
And if I can tag along on that, I think one of the ways when you are so busy to find times to do professional development, to learn new things, podcasts I found very helpful. It's something I can listen to in the car on the way to and from work. So I'm, fitting it into where it makes sense.
Those are all great points. Do you have any another person to speak to that? All right, so that brings us to our last question before we open it up to questions from the attendees. And this question is directed towards Jen. How do you bring your authentic self and your value into what you do every day? And most importantly, why is it important that you do that?
So for me, leading an association is probably not what anybody who knows me thought I would ever do. I'm very much an introvert, and while I am very good at getting things done and moving them forward, I am not the biggest people person. You get me one-on-one, I'll talk to you all day long. You get me in front of a big group of people, I'm not necessarily going to be that person that people are like, oh yeah, she's obviously the leader of this association. However, I have found a way to turn my weaknesses, they're not weaknesses in my mind, but what society could perceive as weaknesses, being in front of a lot of people, to me is very exhausting. But I found a way of how I can make that work for me, still get the job done, still make the connections that I need to make in my association, and at the end of the day, go home and do something for me that I know will recharge my batteries. As an introvert, any big group gathering of people to me is exhausting. I can certainly make it happen, and I've been doing it for a very long time. But at the end of the day, if I go back to my room and I just sit there and read a book that I've had on my shelf, you can see behind me all the books that I still have left to read. To me, that's a great day. I'm not, on the weekends, if I need to recharge, I recharge. And to me, that doesn't mean going out and having a great time with a bunch of people. That means sitting around my house with my dogs, reading a book, doing a puzzle, doing something to just recharge myself so that Monday morning I'm ready to go.
Thank you so much. Again, all positive points, very important points to consider. Now we're going to open it up to questions from our attendees. So we'll wait a couple minutes and give our attendees a while to ask questions. And also we are broadcasting live on Facebook. So also we're waiting for questions and comments to come in via Facebook. But while we're waiting, does anyone have anything else to add?
Well, I'll add something just to tag off of what Jen was saying, bringing your authentic self. And although she's speaking of her being an introvert, I'd like to say I bring to the table, for me personally, I like being around people and being kind of out there in the mix, being with a lot of people. And I feed off that energy, and I feed off of those relationships that I make with everybody. I'm very personable, and I like to meet people from different industries, different jobs, different walks of life. And it's a lot of fun, and it's what helps me stay passionate about the organization and what I do.
And to chime on with, or to add on to what Amy's saying, I agree and feel the same about the fortunate ability to work with so many different individuals from different types of industries and organizations on a daily basis. And for me, the ability to bring my own quirky sense of humor to every meeting that I sit in, and to be able to, as Amy mentioned earlier, with developing and nurturing those relationships. And I could not imagine a life without association management, for me being a part of it. And it's those unique individuals that I get to work with on a daily basis that makes it quite exciting.
And we have, before we leave, we have a comment that I just wanted to share with you all. And it's from one of our attendees. She just wanted to say, what an impressive group of ladies. Great questions and intelligent and thoughtful answers. She loved our webinar, very authentic, honest, and real. So great job to all of you. And while we're waiting for other questions and comments to come in, does anyone else have any other last minute thoughts they'd like to leave our attendees with?
One last thing I do want to say for any IAIP members that joined in today, thank you. I love working with you guys, and I will see you at 2 o'clock for Meet the Candidate.
And we have one question that's coming in. That question is, how can women find mentors, and how do we ask for mentoring? That's a great question.
If I can jump into this, I've actually taken on a few recently. My biggest form of advice, reach out to women who have jobs that you want to have. And I think just asking, I've found that people are more than willing to help, and just reaching out, whether it's, through LinkedIn or through email, just reaching out and simply asking. The worst they can say is no. And again, that's probably just because they're already too busy and don't necessarily have the time and don't want to waste yours. But I think just asking people, I've also learned that people love to talk about themselves. So when you're asking, set up those questions in that sense, of it. People do like to help and they do like to talk about their own experiences. So I think just reaching out and asking can be very beneficial.
And typically, I think you'll find that they're honored that you asked them. So even if they're not able to help you right now, they likely will have somebody else that they can refer you to. And they're just going to be honored that you see them as someone that you want to be in the future.
And doing that, asking those questions for those you see sitting around the table, that's what gets you a seat at that table. You figure out how they got there and you work towards that.
Absolutely. We have some other questions and comments that are coming in, and it's from a female college student, a current female college student. And the question is, will you be doing other similar webinars in the future?
Sure. I do think this was a great experience internally for us here to bring a few of our leaders within the association management business unit together. Within Meeting Expectations as a whole, we have a lot of amazing talent across all of our divisions. And so, yeah, I think there could be a great need and an opportunity for more team members to share their expertise to join in on this.
And I just want to add, I actually see who asked that question, and Yvonne is one of my board members. So hi, Yvonne.
All right, so we have some other questions that are coming in via our Facebook. How can women better enable each other instead of compete? That's a good one.
That is a good question. I think that just recognizing that it's not a zero-sum game. So we don't, for one of us to rise, it doesn't mean another one has to lose out on that opportunity. And I think this kind of goes back to the authenticity question. I mean, it's exhausting to be anything other than authentic. And I think as you have the opportunity to just kind of lean on other women and encourage each other and look for those opportunities to be a positive influence and a positive light, and just recognize the fact that, there's plenty of room, there's plenty of space for all of us to rise up together. Now, it just kind of goes back to what I said earlier about, your life is your life and it's not a competition with other people. So, pursue that path and help others pursue theirs and be a light.
Well, and don't forget also the journey you were on. You've probably been in those same positions, that person asking or trying to compete with you. You've been in all positions. You've been in a lot of different roles. So, that doesn't make you any better or that you've won. We've all been there. We're all the same and we can encourage each other.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We all have something to contribute at the table. And so we have another question. It's, can we connect with you on LinkedIn? Yeah, so I think the consensus that everyone said, yes, please connect, please connect. And we'll give it a few minutes for other questions to come in. Again, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to type them into the chat box. And if you're live on Facebook, type your questions in the comments section as well. And we'll give it a couple minutes before we end the webinar.
And I think I'll just add something while we're waiting. If you are watching this webinar and you are not in association management, you've never considered association management, I think, there's a few of us that never knew what that even meant until we got into it. It's a great industry to be in. We get to work with a lot of different people, a lot of people that are very passionate about the industries that they work in. For me, I love having something that every day my job is just a little different. I've always got a new project coming my way. I'm always being asked to look into something else. It's something that, I don't get bored because I've always got, either a volunteer or a member asking me for something or asking me if there's a way to do something different than how we do it now, which means I'm constantly being challenged. And to me, that makes my job interesting. That makes my, getting up on a Monday morning and coming into work exciting to me. So if you're looking for a great industry to work in, association management has a lot to offer.
Absolutely. We don't have any other questions that have come in. Actually, I stand corrected. So one comment that's coming in is hearing the comments from the perspective of an association management leader client is very interesting and applicable to us. So leaders, for example, for leaders where we work or in our association, and we have a lot of comments coming in just saying how great of a job you guys are doing. And I think not only it speaks to what you did today, but also what you currently do on a continuous basis. So great job. And we don't have any other comments that have come in through our Facebook Live. And we don't have any other comments that have come through our question box as well. And so with that, I want to say thank you again to all the panelists for first being who you are, staying true to who you are, and leading with boldness. And as you guys have shared with the audience, each of you have traveled different paths and have different experiences, but nevertheless, it has made you all the women you are today, which is Take Charge Women Leading the Association Management Industry. So again, thank you so much. To our panelists, and also thank you to all of our attendees that attended via Zoom and via live Facebook. This concludes another great e-learning, which was brought to you by Meeting Expectations. I hope everyone has a fantastic rest of the day. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Tiffany.
you.
Thank you,
Thanks, Stephanie.
everybody.